All right. Hey, Stanley.
Hello, Mickey. Hello on this continually warm day.
I know, it is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. I don't know where everybody else lives, but in New York City, it is very hot.
We have been in the middle of a heat wave. A heat wave officially is when the temperature is 90 or plus, but it seems a little silly to me because if it's 89 and not 90, it doesn't feel any cooler,
Oh, yeah.
even though officially it is.
And I don't even know if it's a wave at this point. It's like the whole ocean.
Well, other parts of the country have it worse.
That's very true.
No question.
I was in Nashville like a month ago, and it was 100 degrees outside. So I don't know what it is now.
Well, in Texas, where I come from, this is standard,
Oh, my God.
and it's standard for weeks and weeks. How are you, all in all?
I'm all right. I'm doing the heat thing. I'm hosting this workshop that I mentioned earlier tonight, which I'm excited for.
You want to tell the world about it or not?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, no one here will hear this in time to come tonight, but there will be many more in the future. But it's an art based workshop. I'm an artist and a life coach, so it's sort of a combination of the two. A workshop in creative expression, authentic communication, emotional literacy, and peak performance. So it's the idea of getting off of yourself, getting out of your judgmental mind, and doing things before thinking about them or convincing yourself that they're not worth doing or that you're not good enough to do them. And I'm using art as a sort of non-consequential, low-stakes example of what can be done when you don't judge yourself while you're doing it. And so that's kind of what the exercise is going to be. But it's going to be fun. I'm excited about it. And it will have been awesome by the time you hear this. It will have already been awesome, and you can come to the next one. So what are we talking about today?
Well, we hope it will be awesome. We are going, maybe not disconnected, we're going to talk about good people. Good people. And that's a wide-ranging topic. I, of course, looked up good, as is my wont. My gosh, good. I mean, goes on and on and on in the dictionary. I guess if you add people to it, that's not a big addition. And good people can be a lot of things. What comes first to your mind, if you will?
Good people?
Yes, sir.
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind are the values that my parents instilled in me.
Good.
The first definition of good that I got was from them. And, maybe it has and hasn't changed over the years. I believe, actually, certainly it has. But there's core tenets of it that haven't changed. And a few of those values are integrity, to be a person of integrity, to be loyal, to be honest, and to be reliable. Have always been tenets that my dad always sort of pushed onto me at a very young age. I always remember him saying, even when I was like 3-4 years old, he'd say, "Mickey, you need to be a man of integrity."
Really?
Like, I don't know what that means, Dad. But yeah, that was always something that I valued. He was very much a person of walk the walk, don't talk the talk. Other people will talk the talk if you just walk the walk. And that is and isn't true today. You kind of have to talk some talk if you want to advocate for yourself. Humility was something he always said was valuable, and I think to an extent humility is valuable. But in today's sort of fast-paced world, if you're working in the art industry or as a life coach or as whatever, there's a certain level of self-confidence that can be mistaken as arrogance. But I think that people who are too focused on humility tend to conflate arrogance and self-confidence, and so they shy away from self-confidence, and I think that that's a mistake, and that's one place where being good has changed in my definition. over the years, is that there's a little bit of self-advocating that you need to be able to do, at the risk of coming across as arrogant, but you're not.
Do you think to be a good person, or good people, plural, you have to believe that you are that?
I don't know. I feel like I know some people that I would define as good who do not think that they are.
Really?
Yeah. And I mean, I suppose it's also it's a spectrum, you know? No one is wholly good. You know, everyone has their flaws and their faults.
You bet. It makes the world more interesting.
Yeah, and it's just part of being human. Like, there's so many things that you'll fall short of. If you were perfect, yeah, it would be boring. You know, there's got to be things to learn and improve at. And the way I view it is that, like, in terms of being a well-rounded good person, everyone is kind of collecting puzzle pieces along the way in their life. And, you know, I might have one puzzle piece that I got when I was 14 years old that you didn't get until you were 45 years old, just because of the way that I viewed my life and the influences I had. But then you might have a piece that I didn't get at all that you've had since you were a little kid. And when I meet another person who has a piece that I don't have, you know, we can exchange our puzzle pieces, and then all of a sudden we see a little bit more of the picture of what it is to be a good person. And these values, we accumulate them over our lifetime, and then we trade them like Pokemon cards.
And in your own life, because you had a dad who was advocating being good, did that rub off on you?
Yeah, I was very fortunate, I think. In my view of the world, it was very good. It was very beneficial to have the dad that I have, because it made my priority always to be conscious of how others are being treated. And it made me very aware of how my actions affect other people. Sometime to a negative degree. You know, it inhibited me from doing things I probably could have done because I was too concerned about how my actions were affecting other people. I know that I had a life philosophy for a long time where I believed, who am I to ask of someone else to be a certain way that I think is a good way to be? Who am I to suggest that someone else acts the way that I want them to act? Because who am I to know that that's the right way to act? And so it in that philosophy, which I still in part think is true, but I also believe now that that philosophy silences you from advocating for yourself and from standing up on your own 2 feet and claiming your own space in the world. You know, people who get walked over are people who believe that they don't deserve to stand up and have something to say. And that philosophy in my life really was not beneficial for a long time, although I valued it highly.
Yeah.
You know, I still think it's a good way to believe. It's just in theory, but in practice, it doesn't really work.
Well, it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when the idea of good people came up, I immediately thought about the world of government and politics. And there's an awful lot that one could say about that idea as it relates to government and politics. This year we're in a very inflamed period of a presidential race and congressional as well. And it's very easy, I think, to take sides and say, oh, well, these are really good people, and those folks over there are really, if not bad people, certainly not good people. And it's a very delicate line, you know. I think most people are good people. There are some who are not. There are some who are criminals and robbers, murderers. Those are not certainly good people. But I believe that fundamentally people are good. Good people are by far the majority. And sometimes they don't get credit for what they are or who they are.
Yeah. I think though too that, let's say for example, someone who grows up in a war-torn country in some terrible area, or let's just bring it to the US. If you grow up in a very impoverished neighborhood that the city, the state, the federal government clearly is not prioritizing in any way. There's no money in the community. Nobody seems to care. It's drug ridden. You lost your parents to whatever at a very young age. I think that it's, if you are inclined from a young age to survive in some kind of way, and the only way to do that is to join a gang or to be a part of to sell drugs or to do whatever needs to be done to not become a victim of your circumstances, I wouldn't necessarily say that person isn't good. I would say that they were grown up in an environment that prioritized certain values, and had they been in any other environment, they would have grown up to be a completely different kind of person.
Yes.
I mean, and that's not to say that I wouldn't say a serial killer is not necessarily a bad person. They're certainly a bad person. But I don't know if goodness is like innately part of you when you're a child or when you're born.
I'm not sure. I think that's a really good question. Personally, I think I am more a good person today than I was as a kid.
How so?
Because I think I'm more honest. I was a little bit manipulative as a youngest child. I think I was spoiled. I know I was. And to the unhappiness of a couple of older siblings who had every right to feel the way they did. But I think in time, if you get educated and if you get out in the world and if you begin to live and to work and to meet a lot of people, if you are smart, you take on good habits and you become a good, honest person. I don't think that's true for everyone. It has been, I believe, true for me. Again, I think I'm more of a good person today. I'm sorry that my parents are both deceased because I would sort of like for them to see who I am today. Oh. And even my older brother and sister, to let them see that I've turned out to be a good person, I believe.
Stanley figured it out.
Well, I've done a lot of volunteer work over the years, a lot. And it pleases me that I've done it, that I've done that. I think one should do that. We've talked here about having a year past high school where one is conscripted into some kind of government service.
Yeah.
You believe in that, and so do I. It doesn't have to be military. It could be anything, really, as long as it's of some use. And that would teach one some good stuff, good habits.
Yeah, I think that that's a really cool sentiment that you said, that you wish your parents could see you now. I think that my dad probably wishes the same thing.
Well, your dad is seeing it.
No, for his parents.
Oh, for
I
his
wish that I think that he probably wishes the same thing about his parents. I know that he desperately wanted his dad to see him succeed in the thing that no one in his family really advocated him to do, which was become an actor.
Yes.
His dad died before he was successful as an actor. He was still working as a bartender and whatever. and I know that he wishes that his dad could have seen that. And in some way, it's an interesting thing to think about, where my definition of goodness and being a good person and everything, came from my parents.
Yeah.
And still in many ways does. And I think that there's a pressure on all children whose parents are still around to live up to the measurements that the parents required of them. And when your parents are gone, which I don't know this personally, but I'm watching it in some of my friends, and I've spoken to my parents about it, and other people. When your parents are gone, you're suddenly thrust into a position where you have no one who you're trying to show that you're succeeding as the kind of person that they wanted you to be. Your parental figure, your guides are gone, and now the things that you choose to do or not to do, you do them because you want to, and
That's right.
There's no one to show.
That's right.
And I wonder if that's a pivotal moment in a lot of people's lives, where you sort of relinquish some of your definition of who you're supposed to be.
I think so.
And you build your own new one.
Yeah. Well, you have moved on to that place while your parents are alive. I believe that I moved on to it largely after my parents were gone. Not altogether, but a good part of it. Certainly in the case of my father. I want to ask you something a little off.
Yeah.
On this. Do you think, for instance, in the world of theater, let's say, do you think you could be a good actor without being a good person?
Yes, I do. I do think so.
I think there have been some.
Yeah, I think that acting doesn't necessarily require being a decent person. I think in fact, I think many actors, I would never dare say most.
Oh, go ahead and list.
Go ahead and dare.
Make a list.
Yeah, but I think many actors have proven to be very dysfunctional in their private life, and I think in some ways it's beneficial to be a bit out of control and dysfunctional when you're an actor, because acting is about indulging your emotional life in any given moment, being able to fully imbibe in an emotional space based on whatever circumstance. And I think a lot of people who are really good at that on script, on stage, behind a camera, or in front of a camera or on a film set, they don't know how to turn it off in some ways, and it's very beneficial for their work or for their private life. I mean, this is my subjective definition of what being good is, but I think that inhibition of your emotional impulses is a really important aspect of being a good partner in a relationship, or a member of a community, or member at a workplace, or whatever. I mean, you need to know how to feel anger and not lash out on a person because of how you feel. And, that's not conducive to acting. You need to be able to feel an emotion and let it out. But in real life, that's not useful.
Yeah.
And for many reasons, I think acting is an alluring profession because of all the attention that you could possibly get.
I hear exactly what you're saying. I'm thinking also about, for instance, people who are in politics. Could they be a good politician, whatever that means, but not a really good person? I don't think so. I think
really?
I think they're two sides of the same coin.
Oh, I disagree wholeheartedly.
Really?
That
Okay.
I think that to be a politician, I think is almost synonymous with being a bad person.
Really?
I think that, firstly, I think that the idea that you believe you are the best person to be in charge of thousands, if not millions, if not hundreds of millions of other people, it requires a level of arrogance and self-absorption that is beyond the common person. I also think that the amount of lying that you have to do in order to win is, I mean, you look at someone like Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is a politician who has been successful his whole life, but he's a good person. At least I believe he is.
Yeah.
And it's also why he's never been able to, do the things he always has wanted to do. He'll never become the president. He'll never, because he doesn't know how to play the game. He's too stubbornly good. He has his morals. I mean, look at JFK. I don't know JFK's personal life. Apparently he was a bit of a ladies' man, but as a politician, I think he was a good person who had strong morals, and that didn't work out for him so well. I think that when you are trying to get into politics and you want to change the world and save create a new vision for a better tomorrow, you do it for all the right reasons. And then when you find yourself in the position where now you have to actually do it, you realize who's actually pulling the strings, and that you have to fall in line, and that there's a bigger system at play than just you. And once you get all the power and the money, you don't want to let it go.
Yeah.
And I think it poisons you.
But we could put this test to a lot of different professions.
Oh yeah.
Could you be a good teacher and not a good person? I suppose you could. Could you be a good violinist, pianist, and not be a good person? I think yes, you could.
Yeah. I think certainly you can for certain things. I remember saying this about a friend of my parents when I was young. He was not the most present father. He's just, he was all right as a father. He wasn't a very good husband. And my dad, one time, my mom and my dad were talking about him to each other, about how he was not being a good husband to his wife. And I was in the back seat of the car, listening. I don't know how old I was, young, under 10. And they were talking. I guess that they realized at some point that they were talking in front of me, and like maybe coloring my perception of this person. So my dad tried to turn to me and he said, he may not be, a good husband to his wife, but he's a good man. And I said to him, according to my mom, I said to him, how can he be a bad husband and be a good man? And I guess that silenced my dad. I don't think he gave me an answer. And my mom has told me this story a couple times in the past, and I think about it every once in a while because it's true. Where like, you can be a very good teacher, or a very good actor, or a very good husband, or a very good friend, or very good whatever it is that you are. But does being good at that one thing that you're doing make you a good person, or is good person an overarching term for being good at a number of things in different facets of your life?
And how would you
altogether
answer that?
I would say that being a good person requires that you are good in many facets of your life, not just one. I don't think you get to be a good person just because you're a good father. If you're not a good friend, and if you're not a good person to a businessman, and if you're not a good spouse, I don't know if you're a good person. You're a good father. That's great. You're a good father. Good job. But I wouldn't say that means that you get all the other accolades too. And also that's to say, I don't know if necessarily being a good person is the ultimate goal for everybody. Some people want to be a successful person. Some people want to be a rich person or a famous person.
Well, they're not mutually exclusive, are they? I mean, you could be rich and good.
Yeah.
Maybe not too many.
It's a harder path to try and to keep both parallel as you go. There's going to be a million choices where you can choose to be good or choose to be successful or get closer to being successful. And every choice that you make, you deviate a little bit from the path of good. And sometimes you need to choose, well, you know what, I'm not going to make that business deal because it's going to decimate Southside Chicago. So I'm not going to do it because that's against my morals. Or but it's also $100 million I'm about to make. So screw those people. I've never met them anyway. I'm going to get the 100 million and I'll repent for it later. I think like a lot of the time people make they choose the shiny object in front of them over the much less fun and enjoyable path of being good. But at the end of your life, I think most people look back and would say, I wish I chose the good path instead of that other one. You know, I mean, I don't know.
I think so.
You seem to have made
I
the good
think,
choices most of your life.
For years, I have been known as Uncle Stanley, not only by nephews and nieces, but by some of their friends.
Yeah.
And I've always thought that was very sweet and very nice.
Yeah.
It's a little star that I can stick on my shoulder, that I am John's uncle, even though I'm really not his uncle.
Yeah, your chosen family.
Yeah.
What is your I didn't ask you this in the beginning. You asked me and then I went on a tangent and spoke for 100 years. But what is your definition? What values would you say are the core values for what it means to be good?
I think if you are virtuous, and there again, that's an open subject, to be virtuous. If you are honest, if you are hopefully a little generous, those make up qualities, and may I add, without overestimating yourself. I found in my father's family, he had brothers and a couple of sisters. They sort of got along, sort of didn't get along. One uncle of one of my father's brothers was very rich, very successful in business, and something of a loudmouth. But he was also a very good person, and I only later realized that. And I think my father resented the fact that he seemed like a big shot, which in some ways he was, but he also was a good person. He was the one who would go to Stanley Marcus, let's say, because he knew the rich Jews, and he would say, okay, you're up for $75,000 this year for United Jewish Appeal. He could get away with that, and he did. He was a fundraiser for certain causes, many of them Jewish causes, and I thought, well, he was a good person.
Yeah.
When my father died, Uncle Ben was a very good person to my mother. He and his wife were very protective of my mother. They lived not far from each other. So it was very lovely to see that. And I came to see him differently, because he scared me when I was little.
I think that's a valuable perspective too that you said is, he was good. He was very good to your mother, because I think that it's also true that to be a good person doesn't require that you're good to everyone on the planet.
Right.
It requires that you're good to the people that you choose to love.
And who are important to you.
Yeah, and to be good to them. It doesn't mean that not being good to other people is to be bad to them. I don't think you should ever be actively bad to anyone. But from good to neutral. I mean, I don't think it's required that because you want to, protect your mother from harm means that you need to go out and save every other person in the world from potential harm. Yeah. And there are people who do try to do that, and it's also a beautiful cause. But I don't think that there's one way to be good, and I think that again it's a spectrum, and I think that anything above bad is pretty good. If you're doing anything that's not actively harmful to other people, then you're doing all right.
And there were people, goodness knows, through history, who were harmful to others.
Yeah.
It would not be hard to make a list.
Yeah. Stanley, we are right there.
Okay.
Any final thoughts on being a good person?
I think you are. I think I am. I think we both are. And
Badge
that's
of honor.
right. Put that star back on.
Yeah.
And may I say, I hope we get some cool days soon. This
Me
heat
too.
is really oppressive.
Yeah, I'm
All
about
right. I'll see you next time.
All right.
Everybody, you all too.
it. See you, everybody.